Hello, and welcome to another episode of my Alpha Centauri Let's Play. This is Northstar. For those new to my channel, which is probably most of you because I don't get a ton of returning viewers, probably because I don't get a ton of viewers, period, and I don't have enough subscribers yet. Um, I'm Northstar. I am disabled long COVID, so I don't always play the fastest, but I'm doing my best. I have to grow this channel because I have to survive, and the bastards who are in charge of the money and power in American society and control politics are trying very, very, very hard to screw over people like me who are disabled, pulling Medicaid, food stamps now, supposedly getting them behind at the same process used for Social Security disability qualification, but if you know anything about that process, you know that it's insanely slow, it takes years to process, and then they disqualify people for bullshit reasons. Uh, for SSDI itself, whether jobs paid into payroll tax, but presuming that they're not actually applying the whole SSDI work credit thing of past history, which can, for instance, fuck me over because some of my jobs were for university while I was a grad student, and I spent a lot of time in grad school before I got disabled. So, and disabled relatively young. Uh, but assuming it's not that process, it's still goes through these scumbag private for-profit agencies that are contracted out by states who find doctors who are willing to say that nobody's disabled, even when they very obviously are, and all sorts of other shit. I've heard horror stories about it, and well, I haven't personally seen some of the stuff yet. I have no doubt it'll lie down the road. So if I want to survive in a society that is increasingly acting as if it would not act as if a society increasingly would rather kill me off than allow me to survive after I got disabled long COVID. I was actually highly educated from excellent undergrad institutions, had a master's, going back to school for two more master's degrees because the first program shutdown was in it. I barely managed to graduate before it was completely extinct. Um, uh, my first master's was delayed partly because my first lab ran out of money, shut down to find another lab. So at the same time as the program was on this ticking time bomb, that happened because the country doesn't fund medical research enough. And anyways, my first program wasn't. I got stuck in a rural area after graduating because the U.S. doesn't provide any help with relocation assistance uh, from where you go to school to your first job after your first quote real job, because I was working while I was in grad school, of course, as I explained. And actually, there was a point where I took a leave of absence due to financial reasons. Worked for the university, did get payroll tax for that as an academic hourly, and research in the lab that ran out of money shut down, unfortunately. Otherwise, it would have advanced my research and helped me graduate sooner while not paying tuition for a semester. That's the idea. Anyways, yeah, I'm a biologist. I should explain that. And yeah, because I got stuck in this rural area, my degree's kind of old by the time I got out of it. There's reasons for that, such as being very financially cautious, not borrowing more in student loans than I needed to, and thus not having like a war chest when I finished grad school to move. Family not helping like they promised me it would. And it's very expensive to move to a big city where there's actual biotech jobs. You need first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, broker's fee. You can't just pull that money out of thin air. So if you don't have many thousands of dollars saved up, and you can't say, oh, well, you should work harder. I did work and I put the money into tuition, which there's no way you can make enough money to pay tuition while you're in grad school and then have money saved up. School is insanely expensive these days, especially graduate degrees. Especially when you're not going to a public university for which you're an in-state resident. Um, Anywhere else, whether it's a private university or a public one where you're out of state, you get screwed on tuition. Um, which is hard enough to get into grad school, so you can't. It's not like you can be that picky and only, anyways. Just looking at units, double checking everything. Um, Here. Yeah, so I wasn't getting where I needed to be. I was trying to become a physician. I decided I wanted to do it in my senior year of undergrad. It's the master's to accentuate my research credentials, get more research experience, get some publications was the idea. I only got one publication from the first lab because that lab had a great professor who was very supportive. I loved working for her, but she suffered sexism as a female researcher, and she was just back from maternity leave, and some of that slowed down like her research process and made it harder for her to get new grants. So, yeah, I got screwed by circumstance and system, which is still sexist and unfair to the person I worked for, even though I'm male. The professor I worked for is female, and if your boss gets screwed by sexism and it affects you, anyways. Um, and the second lab was in guy in charge of that lab. He was an old racist, lazy dinosaur. Lazy because he'd been doing it so long, so he didn't really have to try. He was, tenured and really powerful and like ran a department, and he treated me like shit, and so I didn't get any publications out of that research I could have because he wouldn't, for instance, approve key experiments if they were expensive, and he just didn't invest in training me. He was wouldn't listen to any ideas I had for experiments. He was just an absolute jackass. Um, so yeah, I didn't get quite the research credentials I needed. I got horribly exploited and abused in a TA-ship I did where the contract was grossly violated, and that hurt my grades my first semester of grad school. So all of these things together didn't go as well as I would have liked. Was not getting me to med school, which was my goal. So so after I saved up money to move out of the rural area, being unable to stay break into work as an EMT there because in rural areas, often EMTs are all experienced EMTs who worked in big cities for a while and then came out to where the cost of living was lower. So you can't compete with people who have all that experience. You have to cut your teeth in a big city, which I already said I couldn't afford to move to. But when I did get the money, I did move to a big urban area. After, well, initially it gets more complicated. Saved up enough money, told family as a mover they could finally let me stay with them like they promised before me and on. Then they did it to save face. Tried applying for jobs in biotech, had no luck. So then went and worked as an EMT in a big city area. Because there's job opportunities in big cities for brand new EMTs. And, so I took an EMT course. I'd actually been an EMT before, but the license expired. So became an EMT again, and actually still have a current license. So I have to renew it soon. By exam, easiest way in the United States. Looks like the next one to grow is border agency, maybe. Hydrology Council, actually, and then border agency. Okay. Um. Anyways, so I had a partner who was also trying to get to med school, and he really recommended a special master's program. He was planning on doing one himself. And no, I never even heard of the thing. It turns out it's very much a rich kid thing because you end up borrowing a ton of money to do a master's, which are often hosted at medical schools, and in many cases are basically the first year of an MD type material, not the whole year. I should explain. Sorry. I won't cover it. I know. Where's my thoughts? Great. It's material right out of the first year of an MD. It's like, for instance, one I did took about 2/3 of the first year of an MD. So cut out stuff that's very explicitly like diagnosis, cut out the diagnostic stuff, but all the basic medical sciences of the first year of an MD. Took that stuff, cut a little more out. Um, so it wasn't all the basic medical sciences. As I said, it was about 2/3 the first year, spread out over a whole year. Um, and then gave extra tuition. I mean, not tuition, sorry, tutoring help and such to those who struggle with the material, which I did not. But some of my peers who really struggled with the material got like tutoring more than it was available to med students to kind of baby them through it a little bit. Although to actually get into an MD from this, you need to do really well, like I did. And yeah, partner who recommended I apply to this program. We both applied. I got in. He didn't. He was a little bit resentful of me, even though it was literally his idea that I go apply. But I mean, people are like that. This program tapped on another master's that had good job opportunities because I wasn't confident, going in that I'd be able to get to med school. I'd been screwed so many times in various ways that made it harder, and I had very little faith that my luck would hold. So I've had terrible luck my whole life. So I tacked on, this backup plan. Ended up getting straight A's in both programs. Probably the first time in my life where things actually went as planned or better than planned until I got COVID and then developed long COVID from that and became disabled and everything thrown off. I worked very hard for those straight A's, of course, but um, for once my hard work was paying off. I didn't have any professors who were unfairly picky on me with grading, which I'd experienced in the past sometimes. If I worked hard and answered the questions correctly, a lot of exams had a lot of multiple choice, which helped because there was no subjectivity in that. You just get the right answer, it's right. Not everything was multiple choice, but a great deal of it was. Um, yeah. um, So one time, a professor actually had the wrong thing marked as correct because he misunderstood how percentages worked. He's a very smart man, physiologist, but if you increase something by 300%, means you increase it to 4 times its original value, not to 3 times. He had a increase by 200%, increase by 300%, because he didn't understand. I mean, English, not his first language, I think was part of the problem. Brilliant physiologist, but he had the wrong. I remember contesting that with him, and he wouldn't give ground. Then he marked the answer wrong anyways because there was some other problem with it. He decided, but I think it was the safe face. Like so it didn't matter if you got the question right or wrong. It was removed from the scoring, but that's the only time there was ever. I mean, almost all the time there was no. It was just this. You have the right answer, you don't, for most things, unless the professor designed the answer key wrong, like in that one very rare case. All right, well, I'm saving up energy anyways. Let's not just talk endlessly about my life here. You guys got better things, but trying to relate to some of you. I'm saving up energy here to upgrade units, buy techs when I encounter maybe the university. See, they're the most likely because they were apparently the first faction to build naval units. And for probe team actions, but that does mean the Spartans more likely to demand large amounts of tribute, so which I can't afford to do. That'll make them stronger, and they're already the game leader, so that's risky. I'm running out of time to deal with this seething, erratic, violent Chilean fascist. Yeah, the Spartans were not supposed to be on the Uni. They actually basically snuck aboard. There's 2 factions that were never supposed to be on the Uni, the Morganites and the Spartans. The Morganites bought their way onto the ship secretly because they had helped fund the construction of the ship, and then Morgan himself did anyways. He had like a secret pod that wasn't supposed to be on the ship. And the Spartans, they snuck on board through like violence and subterfuge. So they kind of, espionage type stuff got on the ship when they were supposed to be on it. Uh, all the other factions technically were supposed to be there. Peacekeepers led by the ship's surgeon, believers, the ship's social psychologist and chaplain, university, the ship's lead scientist, Guines, the ship's botanist, and Hive, the ship's executive officer. But those Spartans and Morganites not supposed to have existed. I'm not fond of either of them, but especially not Santiago. I mean, violence for violence sake is just pointless. Santiago only wants to be the biggest dog so that she can beat up on others. That's not something that's praiseworthy or worth any kind of respect. She's a monster, complete. If you ask me. An absolute monster.
Production complete.
Yeah, I don't need another laser skim ship. 2 is enough. Guess I forgot to queue something else. What? Nope. Do transport. These are kind of dual use.
Production complete.
Thought about doing rec commons here. The problem is you can see the number of, well, the, like, even doctors who are psych specialists. They're they come out of the content citizens, at least according to the psych screen. Although if I had this, I could technically have another. So at this point, 2 more pops. At this point, 3. But I would need 1. Yeah, no. I swear one of the unofficial patches changed how doctors work, or maybe it was changed in the expansion, which is what I'm used to playing, because the way it's working here, where they're coming out of content pops, it makes doctors useless without any kind of psych modifiers. They can assume 2 psych and provide 2 psych. I mean, with the peacekeepers, they do add the pop count, so technically they produce a net of 0.5 psych, but that's not worth entire, growing entire pop and feeding it just for that. Convinced some bastards thought it was, ooh, unbalanced. I do not think this is how it's supposed to work. I think this is changed by a patch, but pricks who create these patches, which have necessary bug fixes, just decide they're going to call things bugs. They're just balancing in the game they don't like. Anyhow, this can reach size 6, but it won't be in a golden age. Yeah, to have a golden age, maintain the faster pop growth, which this base is almost 2 extra nutrients worth of value. I'm going to need rec commons. Of course, it could get the same effect on growth for with a children's creche. Come to think of it. Too big an investment. This will only be required buying 3 rows, so 60 energy. Leave me still lots for buying techs and stuff. All right. I can't see her talking all day. Planetary Trust, Recon Rover, World Health. World Food Program does a transport. Fun. Now I do have this buddy. Working in mines here. I do have this farm. Not sure what was up with that. I've thought about it and thought about it. I'm still not sure what I was thinking. Maybe though. Possible I was planning on doing condenser later, and since the condenser takes as long to do as 8 turns, which farm plus mine is 9. 1 mineral versus 2 nutrients, I suspect. Issues keeping the population happy, plus needing stuff quickly. I suspect what happened is maybe I just decided I need to do these first, these tiles. Anyways, I can do a farm solar panel over here in this rolling moist tile. Next, yep. Smart thing to do is to pick one of these formers, doesn't matter which, and activate it. Instead of completing the mine next turn, oh, actually, it'll be done. Sorry, I'm tired, but yeah, I've been having trouble with I'm staying with waking me bloody up in the morning after I went to sleep not too long ago. Of course, this person wakes me up when they get home from work in the morning, and any time they feel like on their day off, it's impossible. They have no respect for the fact that my sleep is disordered with the long COVID. No respect even for normal sleeping hours, honestly. No respect for me, period. I get mistreated. But, yeah, anyways, next turn, the formers will finish the mine. And the transport will have movement, and so I'll just load one of the formers up that has no moves. And then the next, and move here and unload it. And then turn after that, I can have the former get right on that without, yeah. All right. What do I have here? A green recon rover needs to be disciplined. Failed to move onto the monolith. Great. Well, later's, I suppose. Can't sign in case something happens. I need to rush him back somewhere else, but I doubt that. Worth noting. Oh, wrong design workshop. There we go. I don't have a sea colony pod design. There we go. Number 7. Design number 7. Why is this not marked obsolete anymore? I definitely marked that obsolete before. Scout River. Laser Recon. Laser Skimship. No need for gunfoil. Laser Squad. Sea Formers. Transport. Sea Colony Pod. But yeah, where is sea transport? Transfer foil. Cargo space 2. So yeah, I can transport more than land transports. That's I wanted to check. Though you can't load transports inside a transport, so no in the land-based one, inside sea-based one. It's to prevent like bags of infinite holding type situations. Since if I remember, I think when you get to fusion, the land transports get 2 cargo capacity. Plus, of course, you could also stack an infinite number of transports if you wanted. Otherwise, so prevent that ludicrous situation.
Request confirmation.
It might be the shortest route, but it's also a very dangerous one. Right then. Yeah, I'm gonna try to spend as little time in fungus as possible. But I'd like the skim ship to be ready to support the transport foil. And I'll map out the route there. Ah. All this fungus everywhere. Sea fungus. It's quite dangerous because Isles of Deep can spawn just like the land fungus, but except they come with mine worms, so they'll also harass my coastal bases. On top of everything.
Terraform complete.
New thermal borehole has raised temperatures dramatically near UN World Health Organization. What does that gradually make the terrain more arid or something? Pretty sure it's this flavor text. But yeah, it's this 2-2 at this point. No eco damage, interestingly, for the base. Even with that and 12 minerals production. But I'm getting close. This gets eco damage. Interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, I'll do this to get the next growth quicker. Although the base will lose its golden age when it grows, unfortunately. 22 nutrients to grow. probably save the forest for the last turn. Or 2-1. Trades 2 nutrients for an energy and 2 minerals, or trades 1 for mineral. Yeah, probably run the forest for 1 turn. Take that tiny risk of eco damage. I think it's guaranteed to happen, so make it the last 2 nutrients. Get my first fungal pop. You'll see what that is. Fungal bloom.
Request confirmation.
Save 3 turns for an extra 5 energy. Hmm. Transport is on the way. Council be in range. See, I'd be an extra 2 nutrients, a mineral, and an energy, which may or may not, because the rounding probably won't actually, because it rounds, I think, down with inefficiency. Go to waste. I shouldn't lose an energy production here. Get 2, so reducing inefficiency, so I actually get 2 energy. Yeah, it might actually be worth hurrying now. But with the transport only this far. I don't get this far the next turn. So if I did a turn later. Go with the transport here. And then boom, boom. Maybe. Chance of. Reducing the number of transit turns by 1. Because it would load here, but the thing would be able to move. Well, it would be able to move the next turn, though. Yeah, 2/3 chance of coming out completely neutral. Yeah, I should wait then. A turn before rushing. That. Alright. Their farm. After all, this base will eventually grow. So that. think after this farm, I'll try and get the actually a road here, because there'll be a colony there, and then try and get off to this nutrient resource and improve it. All right, give me a sec. All right, I had to think about unit movement for a second. I think I want just to put that scout patrol there. Get rid of the G. There we go. That way, if there's worms that try and come through here along the river, they'll be intercepted. I have visibility if there's something here. It just makes the area a little bit safer. Meanwhile, the river needs to heal a little more before it has 2 movement again. Should be able to get to 80% health without staying in a base. This needs to be able to deal with mine worms that crawl the fungus. I could crawl here and threaten the former. Yeah, I'll just stack it with the former, I guess. Since I do have the ability to defend these tiles with these rovers here. Alright. I know it's a lot of unit micro as I slowly move stuff to where it needs to get in the long run. Shifting units all this way. Apologize, it's a little boring. There's another transport here, that's right. Might even make it as far as the other one. That's what I want to do. Oh yeah, no, I was gonna stack it with this. That's right. Boom. Reformers have altered rainfall patterns near planetary trust. Let me just pause this while I examine it off camera. Alright, didn't want you guys bored out of your mind while I clicked around all these tiles. It does look like this area not only got raised in elevation as expected, but increased rainfall levels to rainy. I'm pretty sure it was moist before. So, cool. I guess. It's more nutrients eventually when I uncap them. This stuff is still moist. What I did is essentially increase the strength of the rain shadow, but this was all arid anyways, so it didn't cause any harm. I think that was all moist. Don't think he dropped that river moisture level at all. So yeah, cool. Still gonna take a little work to get this area there to be not in the sea, but getting there. Um, activate the former. Board the transport. So next turn, can just go right here and unload. Get right to work on the Fungosaur we removed. So not quite sure what I had planned for that tile, but anyways, I'll figure it out. Is this rainy before? The weather patterns did get altered. I do not know. Almost immediately benefit that river condenser, make it a 3 nutrient tile. So maybe I'll work it when the condenser is done. Probably should actually farm this tile instead of letting the forester grow. I got one condenser here that I hope will get overgrown by forest. Thought about doing one here. And yeah, but 2 is probably enough. It takes a long time for the forest to grow into a tile like that, an arbitrary tile. Looking at the minerals on each to see which rover I'd want to send on. Probably rather lose the one civil rights. I came to find this Barnes, which is probably the most dangerous thing I could do. Although, oh yeah, someone's got to protect this for a turn. Let's do that. Dur. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's kind of disrespectful, that phrase. But, yeah, should have seen that. This is always disciplined. It's been from before the command. World Health Organization produces higher quality rovers. There's no huge hurry on this transport, but I'm going to shift support to this.
Request confirmation.
Because there's too many units being supported by this base, which makes the command center less useful. There's one here, really? This one? Wow. There's no. That one, okay. A lot of them are far flung and can't easily shift their support. Well, this one I can. Change the plan then. So it's going to get support from border agency. Although I do need to. Boom, 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 and then boom.
Request confirmation.
Let's hurry that. Never bad to put a few energy credits here and there into the military. This transport has to be economic utility to get done sooner, though. So I'm gonna shift support. This base has very limited mineral production at the moment, but it'll have more later. The borehole. So I can rush that transport a little sooner. We don't want to risk a veteran rover getting attacked. These are my best units and more cost effective to be paying support on them. Get that foreman to work. Cutting away this fungus. And then it's a good spot for a farm. Rolling moist tile. Have to remember to brush that rover later. Because I don't know what happens if completing forest would cause overflow in minerals. It may cause them to go to waste. Clearing a forest, I should say. Switch this to this condenser and actually maybe this tile to condenser there. 3 nutrients, 1 mineral. Maybe not. Definitely this to that. Search of artifacts. Ooh. There we go. Another pod. You know what? Upland Waste doesn't have any no effect. I'm gonna erase this. At this point, it's just for flavor, but it actually makes it harder for me to, how would I say, objectively assess the value of the land. It has some name. More information in my brain to process. It's not useful. Plus, it's not such waste anymore with the nutrient resources, I think. It's got a little more use.
Turn complete.
Alrighty then. Still haven't seen any sign of Scout Patrol getting hit by the enemy. Hardened minus plus. What would they be doing that would lower morale? The Spartans don't run well. Pretty sure they're forbidden from running it, or let's see. Shouldn't be completely certain of that. May not use wealth. Yeah. Just as may not use free market. May not use police state. May not use knowledge. May not use fundamentalist. You know, I think one of the reasons some people find Yang's philosophy to be a little more compelling is because he's one of the leaders who, a lot of his quotes, he doesn't start from the assumption you agree with him. So he makes, I guess, concessions to people's previous views. We hold life to be sacred, but we also know the foundation of life consists of a string of codes not so different from successive frames of watch of it. So he's acknowledging that life is sacred, which is something that Zarkov, the University Provost guy, would probably disagree about. It's more of a concession like the believers. Why then can we not cut one code short here and start another there? Is life so fragile it can withstand no tampering? Does the sacred brook no improvement? So in a couple places here, he's conceding a point. He's saying life is sacred, but, or at least he's meeting people where they're at to change their minds about that idea, which is a good tactic if you're actually trying to convince people of something. Like, if in one of my politics videos, if I'm trying to do something that reaches out to more of a normie crowd, I'm not going to start right off with some deep Marxist theory stuff. I'm going to start explaining something that's very familiar about why capitalism is busted. For instance, hey, have you noticed that your wages haven't gone up substantially for the same work in like forever? I mean, you get more experience. Have you noticed that wages are lower today than they were in the past? Or meanwhile, your boss seems to just keep getting richer and richer. That's something that's familiar to people. Or have you thought about how billionaires buy politicians? Do you think it's stable to have a society where we have representatives, but we have billionaires with this immense amount of money that can buy politicians? It's meeting people where they're at, and then I can get into how you capitalism is actually incompatible with democracy in the long run, and socialism isn't. But I started from something where people would be familiar. Billionaires buying politicians is unfortunately a very common occurrence that we all know is happening at this point. So, good argument tactics, good persuasion tactic. Start from where people are, not from where they aren't. Right, commons. This is 4 turns before I can rush that without it being real expensive. That's probably fine. May even wait longer. I don't want to put too much energy into that. 3 plus 16, 19. Yeah, it's 3 turns till it fills the queue. 6, 9, yeah. So it may actually lose its golden age for a turn, the base. Which, the main benefit of golden age is the growth queue, so I actually don't need to finish the rec commons until the next queue is getting close to done. And that's just +1 energy, which just goes into inefficiency anyhow. And the sooner I do it, the sooner I pay extra maintenance. So, yeah. No super hurry on that. Although by doing this first, I mean, if I did the recon row first, I'd have to spend a long time at 1 mineral surplus, which is really low. Maybe 2 with the... There's value to gain the energy out of my reserves, though, so this barns won't demand as much if it comes down to it. Oceans too will grow before long. Why is World Health Organization so far in the list? Pretty sure I found it pretty soon. Maybe not. Pretty early, I should say. Soon. 4 turns where the xenofungus will still be there. Okay, so yeah, it'll be cleared on the first turn where the space is sized to. Just in time to work it. Perfect. Get the 1 nutrient, 1 mineral from that tile. Otherwise, it'd just be a question of running a dot or gaining 1 nutrient or 1 mineral. Not one of each. Probably would have just gone for the 1 mineral at that point. Alright, well, I'm in an hour already, so I'm going to cut this video. I'm sorry I'm not playing the fastest. No plan survives contact with the enemy, I guess. It's a bad plan that can't be changed. This vague reminds me of something that was stuck in my brain with, there was this old Cold War U.S. fighter design. I remember there was this famous slogan, "Not 1 pound for air to ground." And that aircraft ended up being one of the workhorses of the U.S. fighter bomber, like bombing ground targets. You know, the engineers were stubborn about doing things one way, but the needs of, well, U.S. imperialism and constantly bombing nations that have no real ability to field fighter zone, because the U.S. hasn't fought a pure conflict since World War II, really, or pure and near pure. You know, no other technologically advanced nations, ones that have advanced modern militaries, anyhow. Yeah, that plan was, it didn't matter what the engineers wanted. So go into a video expecting, oh, make it super exciting, but kind of tired. If I want to do that, I probably should go and do a Rebel Inc. or a Vorion video or something, or Wildermyth even. Wildermyth I get really slow when I'm tired too. Well, catch you folks later. Check out my Rebel Inc. video, I guess, because that's what I'm going to go do next. Until next time, I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves, and may you always find a guiding star lead you home. Adieu.
Please don't go.